Hi, this is Andy of MPRV News. Welcome to the origins of MPRV News, Part 3. 1985, and I was really looking forward to seeing DOA play my local scene. A lot of bands from overseas were skipping Birmingham, but DOA were playing, and I'd heard a lot about the venue, the Mermaid, as well. So that was going to be my first visit. I was really looking forward to the gig as a whole. Well, what do you know? DOA didn't show up. So the support band, the Depraved, headlined instead. Wow, it was just a total different experience. It already was strange seeing that there was virtually no street punks at all at the gig. Totally different crowd to what I was used to. And the Depraved were also something I was not totally used to. Totally different in sound to the street punk scene, heavily influenced by American hardcore. Beats a lot faster, energy was just there to be salty, and it was just what I was looking for in my life. Another thing that I noticed was there was a guy with the band doing their merch called Boff. And he was just going nuts on the dance floor. Different style dancing to what you see the street punk gigs, jumping around, almost like he had a cattle prod shoved up his backside. After they had finished playing, I went over to the merch and got talking a little bit to the band, and they was really nice people. And then I got more deeply talking to Boff. Turned out the Boff was into a lot of the American bands like I hadn't long just got into, and also he was into a lot of bands from other countries that I hadn't even considered. I'd only been looking at UK, American and Canadian hardcore. All of a sudden there was bands from all over the world he was talking about. Like me, Boff had become increasingly frustrated by the lack of interest into bands from overseas, so he decided to take their music to the punkers. I was used to going to punk shows where, as the audience, you just brought the records, drunk beer, watched the band, and largely that was all you did. All of a sudden, Boff was using words like, do it yourself. From that point, DIY had become part of my life, and little did I know it was going to become part of my life for good. He showed me a tape list that he did called Leper's Label, total DIY. He put the tapes together on request at home on double tape machines, and they had bands from all over, and the list kept building. He'd sell them for non-profit, and the idea is keeping them so cheap that people will buy tapes regular and discover a lot of new bands, and it worked. As you can see by this detail, the list, it's telling you the band, the venue, the date, how long the tape runs for, and the quality. And on the back is all the add-ons, new additions, and of course the prices. And the idea was you used the times for each band that you wanted to make sure you filled up both sides of a C90 tape. I was fascinated by it and wanted to do it myself, so I did. Luckily I still had my Amstrad stack system. Yeah, remember them Amstrad stack systems? I think we all had one of them one time or another. That went along with a recently purchased double tape deck I had brought, so I had two double tape decks to use at my disposal. My list was already starting to build up an extensive list of US hardcore bands for people to fill their tapes with, as well as the new additions that I was adding all the time. I also included US hardcore radio shows like Maximum Rock and Roll, and I was starting to build up a mini list which would get larger of bands from Europe. I even offered people the option of ordering flyers from the US articles, saying I could print off for them. And look, I even had a top 10 for the month. I always wanted to use TDK tapes, and if I couldn't get them, Sony tapes, because of the quality of them. I didn't want my tapes chewing up in someone's machine if possible. So the tapes were costing me £1 each. When you include the power and the cost of the envelopes and the stamp, there was zero profit out of £1.50 a tape. But in the DIY world, that wasn't anything to do with it. By the time the third list had come out, I had given it a title, New Dawn Tapes, for my label. I still managed to keep the prices the same, but the list had got bigger. It took me hours and hours and hours to make these lists. They was all handwritten and columned out. It was really tiring. I used to have to go down to Warsaw Library to print them. We didn't have computers and printing machines at home then. It used to cost me some like 5-10p a side to have them done. So I didn't do too many lists. By that time also on list 3 I had started to include LPs and 7 inches. So if somebody wanted to check out a band, I could just tape them a track. I did New Dawn tapes for a few years. It got really overwhelming and I learnt a lot about all the hard work that goes into DIY punk. Until that time I always thought if you put a gig on, you was doing DIY, but this was a whole different ball game. I used to get home from work and there'd be packs of tapes waiting that people either sent me to record on or checks with people expecting me to do tapes for them. I used to have the double tape decks running all through the night until I went to sleep and want to wait to change them over. And that was constant. You got on top of it and finished them all. Next day you get home from work, there'd be packs of them waiting again. And if you fell behind on the recordings, sometimes people would write to you, because we didn't have email then. So they'd write to you asking where the hell are their tapes gone, have you ripped them off? So you had to really keep on top of things. And every day I got home from work, there'd be more packs waiting for me or more orders. Sometimes it was very soul destroying, but you got the satisfaction of people checking out new bands and it kept you going. But in the end, I just decided I needed a new DIY adventure. It wasn't long for me to start one.
What's in a name anyway?